The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. This is Bob Drakowski with On Demand Advisors. It's a pleasure to have you join us today. Our topic is how do you catalyze exceptional sales performance for your company? First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today because this webinar was originally scheduled for last week, but since I am out of our East Coast office in the Tampa, Sarasota, Florida area, we were severely impacted by Hurricane Milton. So we needed to push this out since we had no internet or power at the time. So I wanted to thank everybody for rescheduling for today. As we talk about sales performance, it's been my experience as a executive building B2B companies that I've hired thousands of salespeople over my career and helped build 10 different companies at different stages, from VP of sales to the chief revenue officer to chief operating officer to CEO. And as you look at scaling sales organizations, oftentimes we find that you do hit a number of issues that adversely affect performance. So we're going to discuss those today. Get your input. We're going to be asking you to post any questions that you have throughout today's webinar, and we'll make sure that we get to them in the Q&A section. And if we run out of time in that section, by all means, I'll follow up with you one-on-one after today's webinar. But we are here to ensure that we're giving you the best tools, knowledge, and best practices so that you can be successful in your career, both personally and professionally. So on top of that, thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate that. Let's start off with what are the issues that most executives have when it comes to sales performance that we often hear. One of the issues we find often is that there's lack of consistency across the sales team. So, for instance, no matter how good you are at hiring sales executives, account managers, and so forth, what we typically find is that we have A's, B's, and C's. A players that are just exceptional, B that are okay, but they're not exceptional, and C that are underperforming. And so one of the things that we always struggle with is how do we get consistent performance across the entire sales team? Another issue that we often hear is it's taking too long to onboard new sales executives. So if you hire a new sales executive, the question is, how long does it take before that person can reasonably hit their numbers month in and month out? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 3 months? Is it a year? And that is one of the issues we have. Another uniform issue that we hear is that sales cycles are taking too long. And the challenge here in many cases is sales cycles do take a while, but sometimes they can become elongated, especially when you're selling to a number of different stakeholders or selling a complex solution to a large company. Every VP of sales that I've met, every chief revenue officer really has this as an issue that they often have, which is they're just not able to generate the quantity and quality of leads that they need for their sales team, to achieve their numbers. Another issue is sometimes there's just you need a winning strategy instead of a competing strategy. A lot of sales teams do a really good job going through the steps in the sales process, but they don't necessarily win at the end of the process. And then finally, there is the sales team is not an island. So in front of that, you've got marketing. On the back end, you've got services or customer support or implementation or onboarding. So how do you do a better job setting the stage for customer success? And so these are sometimes many of the issues that you hear as we talk to executives. And we're going to discuss how to deal with some of those today. So the first thing I'd like to think about is, how do you measure your success? So when you think about the sales team that you have at your company today, one of the ways that we think about assessing success is ensuring that both the team and the individuals have hit their sales quota, whatever that quota may be. Another way to look at success is how long does it take you to get your new hires aboard? So having really a good onboarding process, giving them the DNA that they need, having a sales playbook that really provides consistent knowledge and best practices and dissemination of the process is really important. So getting that sales executive who's come aboard up to speed, typically for in less than 3 months, is important for many companies. A third way to look at success is conversion rates. So with conversion rates, what you typically have is you're going to have opportunities that your market qualified leads to close, or to sales opportunities to close. You're going to have your win rate. So these are different metrics that you'll be capturing. And of course, not only do you want to capture those metrics to set a baseline for your company, but you want to see how do you improve those metrics over time. Another way to look at sales success is adherence to your sales process across the organization that you have in place today. And then finally, what's the outcome? Well, the outcome is to create happy customers with demonstrable ROI, or return on investment. So one of the things that we often do when we work with our clients is to create what we call the sales playbook. And the sales playbook really is that set of knowledge that every sales executive in your company is going to need so that they can be successful scaling the sales process for you, delivering results, delivering happy customers, and really helping deliver the profit and the top line revenue, the growth that you need. So these are 8 different areas. We're not going to cover all 8 areas today, but suffice to say that everybody that has registered or attended today's webinar, we'll ensure that we get a copy of this to you so that you can take a look at this. What we'd like to do right now, though, is dive into 5 best practices. There are 5 things that you can do today that are going to catalyze extraordinary sales performance. And we're going to cover each one of these today. So we'll walk through each of these 5 best practices. The first one, of course, is just leads, leads, leads. And that's something you hear all the time from every executive, from every VP of sales. And that is, we need more leads. And then when you get more leads, the question always is, how do you get better quality leads? So we'll talk about sales tools. We're going to talk about how do you optimize your sales process. We're going to talk about how do you perfect your strategy not only to close deals, but also to win. And then finally, coaching for performance. So these are 5 very specific, well-grounded ways that we're going to talk about how do you impact sales performance and improve it. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is delivering the quantity and quality of leads. Now, this is something at On-Demand Advisors that we often look at, which is what we call the 3 funnels. So the first funnel is your marketing funnel. That represents the total population that you're going to provide a set of campaigns and a set of programs to actually graduate that interest into market qualified leads. The second funnel, the lead development funnel, is really where you're going to take that interest and go through a qualification and development process so that you end up with a sales qualified lead for sales. And of course, your third funnel is your sales funnel. As you can see, there's a conversion rate for each of these funnels that we have here in this example. And the key is to make sure that you can engineer that outcome. One of the important things, though, when you look at this is that if you don't get the first funnel right, you don't have to worry about being successful with the other 2 funnels. So the first funnel means you need the quantity of marketing leads that need to be developed at your company so that you can then graduate them and go through the process of converting them to each of the different funnels. So as an example, one of our customers, Ray White, the Chief Performance Officer for a global social media management services company, came to this webinar a year ago. And he basically said, Bob, he says, you're spot on. My issue is we're creating 40 to 50 leads per month, And I don't need 40 or 50 leads per month. I need 250 leads per month if I'm going to increase revenue by 50% year over year. And so one of the things that we did with him is we ascertained exactly where they were at, but then we actually put in a sales playbook so that we could actually help him achieve the lead volume that he was looking at and then set up the appointments for sales that need to be subsequently done. Needless to say, once we did this and we basically put in his demand generation engine, he was in a position then to exceed his 50% growth goal that he had year over year. Okay. Now, to get that type of volume in terms of leads and lead volume that you need, the quality that you need, as well as being able to scale it, we talk about putting in a demand generation engine, revenue generation engine, demand generation engine. And the bottom line is that we've figured out over working with hundreds of B2B companies that there really are 9 components that go into this engine. And so I won't spend a lot of time talking about that today because this would be a separate webinar. But the truth is, you start with an intentional model. You basically look at your outcome focused messaging. And I say outcome focused because it's about how you're going to deliver results through your solutions and services to your clients. In many cases, we'll do surveys to validate with the buyer our assumptions. We actually have a plan to reach 100% of the audience. We do implement number 5, the underlying infrastructure so that you can capture all the information in one place and scale. We do create a buyer engagement roadmap because every month you need to reach your audience with something that's really compelling, really useful, something that they desire from you. Looking at what are the right channels to engage with your buyer. There are many channels to look at. And then executing those campaigns and programs on a weekly basis for consistency. And then finally, if you have a basket of programs, campaigns, you want to make sure that you can look at them and look at the conversion rate and the return on investment. But we put this engine in at many, many companies, many B2B companies, and we've had great success at scaling the demand that is required. Let's talk about number 2. So for your sales organization, let's say you've got 10 people in sales. And one of the things that we look at is for 10 people, they all bring different talents to the table. And so what we want to do in many cases is ensure that we enable their success. So on this funnel here, there's a couple of things I'd point out. One is these are some of the programs that typically are being put in place to create the market qualified leads for the sales team. But from here, you've got your process that you go through. So qualify the sales opportunity, prove your solution or service, propose that solution, negotiate, and close. Now, your steps in your sales process will vary depending upon your company. But one thing is certain, there are a set of sales tools that you're going to need to develop to make sure that for every market or for every segment, that your sales team is equipped with the right sales tools and that they're able to use them at the proper stage. So as an example, another one of our customers that we work with in Austin, Texas, they have today 4 different markets that they go after. One is franchise, one is nonprofits, one is accounting firms, and the third one is kind of a catch-all horizontal market. What we've done basically is we've worked with them to have 4 sets of funnels and creating the unique sales tools that they need to help guide the buyer through the buyer's journey and move them from stage to stage. Now, the key is not only creating these tools and these offers that your audience wants, the next key is to organize them in a useful fashion. So one of the things that is important with your sales team, just in terms of their efficiency, is to be able to organize them in a sales enablement solution like this one, like OneSource here, where all the content is here. You can share that information proactively, such as a webinar like today, recorded webinar, such as a buyer's guide, such as an ROI guide, such as a explainer video. All this information can be put into this repository. It can be, as we just showed you, it can be set up, these tools can be set according to the stage of the funnel. And then your sales organization really understands how to use each of these different sales tools at the right stage as they're engaging with buyers and prospects. So this is really very valuable. This is one source. This is something that we provide to our clients as we work with them, which is really to bring sanity and organization to all of these powerful tools so that even the new salesperson coming into the company understands how to use them most effectively. So that's number two. Number two is really making the tools available for your team. So number one was creating the demand that your sales team needs, because they definitely need the right opportunities. Number two is giving them the sales tools and organizing them intelligently by steps in the sales process. Let's talk about the third area to help really achieve extraordinary performance. As you can see, this looks like a barbell. At one end, the front end of the sales process, you've got something we would talk about, which is called discovery. And at the far right end, we've got closing those sales opportunities. And in the middle, it's the sales process. It's how do we engage with every buyer, every prospect, and take them through that intelligent process. Now, it's interesting. What we find is that the reason why we're focusing on discovery and closing for today's webinar is because these are the two areas where most sales organizations get stuck. So the first area is discovery. If you can't find the pain, if you can't find the need, if you can't find where the ROI is, then you're going to go through a process that's not going to end up being closed, because you won't have demonstrated enough value to satisfy a need, provide a solution, and prove it to your target audience. On the other hand, on the other side of the barbell, you've got closing. It's not unusual for most sales organizations to be in a position where they take a prospect or a buyer through all the steps in the process, yet it doesn't close. And there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't close, but some of those have to do with not having sales accelerators or closing vehicles, as we talk about that today. In the middle is this thing called a strategic deal review, which is being able to look at every one of your sales opportunities that you have today and being able to look at them and very quickly ascertain what's missing and what needs to be added or implemented in the sales process to be successful. So we call this the sales performance program. For one of our clients, the one I was talking about in Austin, Texas, they provide financial management and accounting solutions. And so what we've been able to ascertain for them is that there are 17 different pains or business challenges that they address. So one of the things that's really important when they're going through the discovery process is being able to ascertain which of these pains or challenges does the client have. And so this really provides the roadmap for the sales team to start asking the right questions. So it's one thing to ask open-ended questions about where do you have a challenge today? And that prospect or that buyer may say these three areas, but they may not have these other areas top of mind for them. So in the area of thoroughness, you really want to make sure that you've mined for both overt pain and latent pain that the buyer actually has. I've always said that you win or lose an opportunity early in the discovery process. And the reason why is that a lot of times junior salespeople want to get to the presentation or the demonstration very quickly. But if you take the time up front to regularly go through and ascertain the challenges that the organization has, what's not working, where do they have issues, quantifying those issues, that's where you're going to find you have the value to hang on to the end and close this opportunity. Without doing that, you're just in show and tell mode. In the middle part of this process is taking your prospect or your buyer through the sales process. And of course, what you really need is you need a consistent way to look at every different opportunity that you have today. Now, this is an example of a strategic deal review guide that one of our clients uses. And what's really great about this is it's a snapshot. It gives us a really excellent view on where we're at in the sales process. And some of the things that are really important is what's the strategy to close? What's the strategy to win? And understanding the obstacles that need to be addressed. So this is really an excellent tool for us to really look at on at least a monthly basis all of the key opportunities that the company has and to make sure that they're going to win in these areas. So often when a sales executive is working with, let's say, 10 or 20 different opportunities simultaneously, they may get lost in the details. They may drop the ball. And so it's a great way for you to make sure that you're staying on the strategic elements of closing the business with the right stakeholders in mind. Now what I want to talk a little bit about is just this strategy to close. So there are two ways that you can accelerate the buying process and the closing process. And I want to cover each of those. With the buying process, one of the things that we look to do is equip your buyer, your champion, as well as your sales team with different vehicles to actually move the process forward quickly. And I'm just going to share a few of those with you today because they're really helpful. Remember, one of the obstacles or issues is that sales cycles are taking too long. Well, we created something called the Buyer's Guide. And these are 3 examples with 3 customers of buyer's guides that we've created for them. But the notion of the Buyer's Guide is to really help hone your champion in on what are the key criteria that they need to be thinking about in terms of their evaluation, their solution, and the results that they want from your type of solution. And so in the first one of our clients provides talent management solutions and in the HR space. And so we wanted to really provide a buyer's guide to that audience. Now, this is really important when you're going early on in the process. You're past discovery, you're into helping that champion really think through how they're going to go through the evaluation. They need a preemptive way to think through this. Now, the thing that happens with everyone, with all of us, is there is a destination that we all go to, and it's the website. Now, most websites out there are fairly mundane and informational. What we've done is we've turned it on its head, and we've created something we call a sales-driven website. And the purpose of the sales-driven website, when your buyer or prospect lands on your site, is to start taking them through the sales process and the buying process. So here's an example of one of our clients' technical toolboxes. So if you come to the site, you'll find that there's an overview, take you through the challenges that you typically have, what are the solutions to those challenges, what are frequently asked questions that everybody has, who are clients just like me, and what are the intelligent next steps to go through. It's a great way to be able to do this. And you can set up this process as we do for our clients when we develop these websites. It's transformational from where they are at the beginning to where they want to get to in the back end. Now, this is the digital sales process, and think about this. A lot of this information can be made available anytime, 24 hours a day, to your prospects. Another thing that's important is when you're selling to a team, you may be working with a champion, you may be working with a number of people, but there may be 20 people that you need to influence in this sales process. So your website needs to mirror the sales process you're going through in person. So you can see that this would be one way to organize the information. So this one is organized around persona, which is integrity and risk management engineers. We also could have the same type of buyer's journey and digital process here based upon solutions. And we could do this also based upon industries or any number of different ways. So it's a great way for you to provide information and do all of the upfront education, preference setting, and take them through the questions they would have. Do all that digitally on your website. So this is another way to accelerate your sales process. And then finally, these are different things that you could do with a sales-driven website. So depending upon your solution, whether it's transactional or strategic, you can actually do a lot of the sales process on the website, and you can decide whether they can actually be a buyer on the website or not. I can tell you, as CEO at Intact, software as a service financial applications company, we were very successful at putting in a digital journey, a buyer's journey for our customers. And we did this by industry, by the way. And what we found is that we wanted to be able to take the contract, take the order, and do all that online. And of course, at that time, many people thought we could not sell an accounting solution to a CFO online. And what we found, what was interesting, is that for about 20% of the time we could. The other 80% of the time, we had the ability to have the account executive or sales executive move directly to that CFO and engage them once they had done the education process on the website. So it's very efficient. These are 3 ways that you can actually help accelerate your sales process. So one is give them the guides that they're looking for, like a buyer's guide, like an ROI guide. Number 2 is give them the vehicle to basically look at the website and take everybody through that sales process as quickly as possible. And then the third thing we want to talk about is convert them quickly. So it's not unusual for many prospective customers, buyers, to wander in the desert. And so one of the things that we've done is we created what we call the Quick Start program for many of our clients. And the Quick Start program is, how do you get somebody started very quickly? How do you get them to achieve results in the first 30 to 60 days? How do you get them comfortable with your service or solution so that they're all in? It's not unusual for many companies, for instance, to be in a position where they're looking at the risk that is associated with that decision. You know, one of the things that we found in many cases is that the number one competitor isn't a name competitor, it's do nothing. And so the do nothing typically is there because people have either they haven't quantified their risk and their issues and monetize those to understand that the value is greater than the pain, or they're concerned about the risk that they have bringing that solution inside their company and whether it's going to work or not. So what we do when we work with clients is we help make sure that they can build ROI in that sales process, demonstrate that ROI, and provide the right success stories, and then offer a quick start program if there's concern about whether this solution or service will work in that customer site. It's a great way to eliminate all the obstacles preemptively as you're working through the sales process. And the fifth area is conducting sales coaching every week. So as I mentioned earlier, since I had the pleasure of building so many extraordinary B2B sales teams, what I realized is that salespeople are like all of us. Practice makes perfect. And so when you're thinking about that, part of sales coaching is being able to provide that type of coaching. Now, a partner on our team, Dale McConnell, provides this to many of our clients. So one of our clients is a company called Digitalis. Great company. They provide planetariums. So if you're a school board or school district, if you are a museum or science center, and so forth, there are a lot of different organizations that want to provide planetariums to their audience, to the community that they have. And so we've been very fortunate to work with them. And Dale has been extraordinary working with the sales team and the management team. As you can see here, one of the things that we did is we've created planetarium leadership profiles for each of their customers, which is great. It's a great way to recognize their customers. It's a great way to give buyers and prospects an aspirational way to become a planetarium leader themselves. But by providing the type of sales coaching that we talked about, really understanding the potential, having a strategic deal review, working with the team to work through sales obstacles, they've been extraordinarily successful. And so just yesterday alone, we were able to work with them and they closed another $500,000 opportunity. And just a few weeks ago, they closed another $800,000 opportunity. So these are some of the biggest sales opportunities that they've had moving forward as a company. But it's really been making sure that we're providing the right coaching process and best practices to them as they move forward. So let's kind of recap this for a moment, if we could, and say, what are the 5 best practices if you want to have extraordinary sales performance? First, delivering the quantity and quality of sales leads required. Just like we talked with Ray White, making sure that he could go from a 1 to a 5x in terms of the number of leads he needed, and making sure that those leads were quality leads. Those were in the target audience, they were vetted, and they understood and educated about what their needs were and the solution that they wanted. The second thing is delivering all the sales tools to guide the buyer through the buying process. And so you've got to have these tools. They need to be available. And as you think about this, you really are looking for equipping your organization successfully. The third thing we talked about is just optimizing that sales cycle. So one of the ways we talked about that is moving to a sales-driven website where you can do all of the upfront education, all the preference setting, guide your buyer through the buying process based upon their perspective, whether by industry, by persona, such as CFO, or by type of solution, like we're doing with technical toolboxes, and really be able to take them through that process. But where things get stuck, as we talked about in the sales cycle, is on the front end, which is making sure we do what we call implicate the pain. So one of the methodologies that we help companies put in is something called MEDDIC, MEDDICC, and each of those stands for something very specific. But they have a step in there called implicate the pain. Implicate the pain means to pull it out of the audience. Make sure you fully understand the pain and the challenge that they have. If you do that, it gives you a foundation to build on for ROI and for a solution. Having a win in the discovery phase is important, and then conducting your strategic deal review, and then finally perfecting your strategy to win and close each of these opportunities along the way. As with any organization, whether it's junior salespeople, such as sales development representatives, whether it's mid-market selling account executives, or whether you have strategic sales executives or partner development officers, they all need coaching for performance. They all need that help. They all need that mentoring so that they can actually end up growing. So these are 5 of the best practices. Now, we provide all of these best practices to our clients. And let me share a couple things about on-demand advisors. So we were founded 15 years ago, and what we realized is that we wanted to be able to help our clients succeed. And so the good news for us is we're very serial. We've done this work with hundreds of B2B companies. So we've perfected the programs, the best practices, and the knowledge sets that we bring to each and every client that we have today. So we'll talk about a number of these things today. One is a sales playbook. Oftentimes we put together a sales playbook with our client to help really codify what are the important things that everybody needs to be practicing at that company. Another thing we talk about is just that the barbell we talked about, which is how do you gather that type of sales performance program that it really does the discovery on the front end, interrogates the sales process through a strategic deal review through the middle, and then has the accelerators for closing on the back end. Now, another program that we have instituted with our clients is what we call the Customer Reconnect Program. Now, this is kind of interesting because if you think about revenue growth comes in a couple different ways. You can sell to new customers, you can sell to existing customers, which is what this is. You can sell through partners, and then you can also launch new services and software programs, as an example, which would bring in revenue too. So the Customer Reconnect program is something that we've implemented for quite a number of customers. And what we found is that a lot of times customers know who you were, not who you are. And so one of the things that we found is that the solution that the customer needs is typically bigger than what they have in place from you today. So that may include some additional services or training. It may include expansion of your solution today, or it may mean that you're going to take your solutions and take them into other parts of that company. All of those are expansion opportunities. And so one of the clients that we work with, a company called Max Recall, we essentially had an opportunity to help them do that, where they had 150 clients, and most of those clients knew who they were, not who they are. So we implemented the Customer Reconnect program, and they were able to increase their revenue for that year when we implemented that first program by 20% year over year, just through that program. Now, the important thing about that program is it also reduced their churn, and it also made them able to realign with every one of those customers strategically based upon where that customer is going. Another sales performance program that we are putting in place with many of our clients is the account-based selling program, or ABS. And we've heard about account-based marketing. We've heard now ABS. And here's what's happening. When you have a Lighthouse account, as an example, and let's say the Lighthouse account, one of our customers has a Lighthouse account called Orange Theory Fitness. Orange Theory Fitness has about 1,500 locations. All those locations are using our customer's solution. They're very excited. They're a great reference. And when you think about that, the thing that you look at is, if I'm a salesperson, the first thing you do is you say, well, I wonder how many other Orange Theory Fitnesses are out there that I could actually go and win. And so what we're doing with this ABS program is we're equipping them with them to go into those different industries like fitness, and to take that Lighthouse account, take what they've learned in terms of pains, challenges, and business problems and value propositions, and take that in directly into those other next 100 fitness programs and companies out there. That's just an example of applying ABS, but it's a great way to look at intelligently increasing sales opportunities through your sales organizations while your marketing organization is using these engines to get all of the new market qualified leads that you need for the company. As I said earlier, we've got, this is just a few of our clients that we've worked with and work with today. We've got hundreds of B2B clients that we work with. And so we're very serial at the knowledge that we bring to the table. And that's some of the beneficiary that we have for today's webinar. So what I'd like to do right now, if you don't mind, is let's go to our Q&A, and let's go ahead and see if you could post questions that you have for today's webinar. And I'll go through a few of them today, time allotted. So please go ahead and post that. Okay, so here's the first question. This question says, do you help me evaluate existing sales executives or recruit them? The answer is yes. A lot of times when we get involved working with a client, one of the first things that they ask us to do is look at what are the sales resources that they have in place today, look at their results, and assess those resources. And, and as you can expect, there's something we call top grading. A lot of companies want to grow. And so what you want to do is you want to take your sales executives and coach them for performance, as we talked about earlier. Um, there are some that won't succeed and that you're going to replace. And then you're going to have to go out there and recruit and bring aboard new sales executives. So one of the clients that we have in Austin, Texas, we've helped them bring aboard their entire sales team, new VP of sales, new strategic focus, new mid-market focus, and new small accounts focus. And so build out those teams, build out the processes to make them successful, give them the sales tools, and enable their success. And while we're doing that, of course, Craig Remy, my partner at On Demand Advisors, has built out the demand generation engines for each of the different industries. So really feeding that team with the right tools, giving them the opportunity to succeed has been our mission. So good question. Here's another question. How long is it before I see results with the customer reconnect program? That's a good question. One of the things we find as we engage with our clients is that starting with the customer reconnect program is a great place to start because it gives you an opportunity to do something that is low risk, which is meet with all of your customers and figure out how you're going to provide services and greater success to them as they move forward. I mean, every customer wants that. Every customer has invested in your service or your solution. And so they're thirsty for success themselves. They're thirsty for greater ROI. And so this customer reconnect program is just, it's a great place to start. And for many clients that we work with, we do start here and they're able to get reacquainted with their customers, and more important, get their customers reacquainted with their capabilities today. Here's another question. It says, you mentioned sales tools. Who builds them for us? Good question. We do. When we engage with a client, we help build the sales tools. In many cases, if you don't have the resources internally to get the job done, we realize that as we engage with companies of all different sizes, they don't either have the competency or the resources internally to get the job done. So we do that for them. So we're great at building out the sales tools, whether it be an explainer video, whether it be a customer success story, whether it means hosting a webinar on thought leadership, whether it means creating a buyer's guide or an ROI guide for the champion. These are the things that we just do every day in and out. Okay. Here's another question. How can we be more strategic with our audience? It's a good question. A lot of companies that we work with are very tactical in their engagement with their target audience. And so one of the things that we do with our clients when we get together with them in the beginning is do what we call a strategic messaging workshop, which is really understanding the pain and the challenges that they can help their clients, their customers address, and get all that down, and then figure out how do we actually move it up the value chain so that it's more ROI outcome focused. And once you do that, then you have your right solutions and you can start messaging at that level. So you want to be able to message at whatever level is going to be able to sell your solution, whether it's be transactional or strategic. But often in the case, many times when somebody's going to buy your service, buy your solution, it's going to go to a decision maker. So that decision maker has to sign off on that solution and has to understand strategically why it's going to be of value to them. Okay, here is one more question we'll get to before we move on. This question says, do you help us implement the sales playbook? Good question. So we help companies create the sales playbook. We work with them, with the VP of sales or the chief revenue officer or the COO of the company. And then we also help you implement the playbook. So that's just exactly what we did with Ray White at ICUC. So we not only built the sales playbook for him, but then we helped him implement that. So on the marketing side, we helped him 5x the number of leads. On the sales side, we helped to basically create the sales playbook so that we could onboard the sales team bring them aboard, and get them productive very quickly. So good series of questions, and thank you very much for posing those questions for us today on today's webinar. So from today's webinar, what are some of the next steps you can take? Well, if you have an urgent need, urgent request, by all means, we'll be reaching out to you. Dale will be reaching out to you and seeing if you have anything you'd like to set up a meeting for us to discuss. It's not unusual for us to start there. So, for instance, one of the things that we got involved with Digitalis is they also have channel partners in different parts of the world, and they had a specific question or issue with one of their partners over in the UK. So we sat down with them, and we basically went through that solution with them to really figure out what's the best approach. And that's where we started the relationship. Now it's blossomed into a very strategic relationship that we have, but we started with a very simple, urgent problem that they had. And we'd like to do the same thing for you too. If you also wanted to look at some of the other programs that we offer, we do have the optimal sales cycle program. Happy to discuss that, the customer reconnect program, or our ABS account-based selling program. These are different programs. They're bite-sized. They're quick to implement, quick to get results, and happy to talk to you about that. So these are some next steps that you can take. In addition to that, we've got today's webinar that you're looking at, Catalyzing Exceptional Sales Performance. Next month, on November 14th, our next webinar is going to be about creating that consistent and predictable demand for your company so that you can scale. That's really the first funnel. And how do you put in that demand generation engine that we talked about? In December, we're going to talk about how do you engineer your revenue growth for 2025. This is a favorite for many of our clients because they're thinking about mathematically, how are they going to engineer the outcomes that they want next year? And this is the time to start doing it. And so we'll cover that with you too. So just a whole series of best practices that we'd love to cover with you. By the way, for Craig and myself, here is our contact information. You're always welcome to call us at our office, or you're able to go on the website, and we've got these other webinars posted to the website that we have coming up. And so we really want to help you have extraordinary sales performance now and achieve that. And especially as you're thinking about getting ready for next year, is putting in the right knowledge, best practices, and assets as you think about going into 2025. So on behalf of myself, Craig, Dale, and the entire On Demand Advisors team, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for today's webinar. It's been a pleasure having you join us, participate, and ask those questions. And please do feel free to engage us, and we'll be following up with you after today's webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.